Why is it so hard to bring ourselves to practice new skills or habits?
I think it's difficult to practice new skills because of the way that we practice. I think that, and that's why one of the tools is actually fall in love with practice. Because what I have found, right, and through some of the people that I've spoke to and interviewed for the book, is that practice can become monotonous really fast. It can become boring. But there are, just like with everything, there's limitless possibilities in the way that we can practice. And so I interviewed the 5 times US memory champion, Nelson Dellis, for the book. And I specifically asked him, Nelson, how, like at some point it's got to get boring, right? Like if you're just practicing the same thing over and over and over again. And I said, what do you do? And he said, well, sometimes when I get to that state, he said, instead of he would memorize like a 52 deck of cards in, I forget how many, like 20 seconds or whatever it is, or 30 seconds.
In that order?
Like in a random order. Someone hands him the deck in 30 seconds, he could memorize like the whole thing. And so I said, what do you do?
But was he born with that skill, or did he actually teach himself that?
He wasn't. He had someone in his family, I think it was his grandmother, who got Alzheimer's, and he never thought he had a good memory. And he was concerned that that would be his fate. And he turned to memory games and learning how to, build his memory. And so he told me that what he does is he will insert a few extra cards in the deck. So he'll change it up. And he said that presents a new challenge to him that activates his mind and it makes it more engaging. And so that you could kind of think about, what are all the things? And sometimes it may be that you're like when I was younger and I was, I was always the last chosen for sports at school, right? Actually, it was me and this other kid. And
you're hilarious, Dr. Carp.
And so, I really wanted to get better at basketball, and I would go and I would throw the ball and, just nothing, just plateau, like just anger and whatever. And luckily there's somebody actually who I recently connected with, which was pretty interesting, but someone who saw me doing this and came up and said, here, I'll show you, I'll show you how to do it. And he said, we're just going to focus on the layup. That's it. And I was probably, maybe like 11 years old, 10, 11, something like that. And he would just stand with me and he would say, okay, shoot it there. Here's the angle. Here's how to do your hand. And over time, I got better at it. Like I was almost getting it every single time. And to me, that was shifting from the possibility of me just standing there trying to do it on my own to having someone supportive there with me, showing me how to do it. And so it was just, I was engaging in another possibility. It's finding the process that works for you. And when you start, I almost think of it as like a knob, like it's like click, 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 there It is. Now I'm improving. And we need to be able to tune in to those incremental improvements in incremental progress in order for us to continue to advance. And to me, it's like falling in love with practice is the key to persistence. It's how we become persistent in anything in our life. If we can find ways to infuse joy into practicing, then we can keep at it for longer and we can be persistent. And we all know that, persistence is so important for progress.
It makes me think about the fact that it took me a long time with my brain and ADHD and dyslexia to do that click, 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 click. Oh, this is it. And I do think we get into these patterns of believing that there's only one way to do something, or the way that you've always done it is the way that you should always do it, or that just because somebody else had success shooting the basketball a certain way, that's how you do it. And what I love about this tool, Fall in Love with Practice, is one of the biggest practices in your life is experimenting with yourself. And for me, I don't write books by writing them. I talk it out. And then I edit transcripts, which is a form of writing. Another discovery that I've made about myself, Dr. Karp, is that I'm a reactor, both emotionally and intellectually. But I'm working on the emotional part. Yeah. What I've realized is the intellectual part is a superpower. If you ask me a series of questions, I can talk all day long. I can tap into this brain power and a decade of research in the work that I've been doing. And I can just almost go into a state where I'm speaking in tongues and I'm a human encyclopedia. If you give me a piece of paper and you ask me to like just write a full page about a topic, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so this idea of fall in love with the practice and give yourself room to experiment. What you're actually practicing on is what works for you, what unlocks something in you. And that pursuit of being curious about it and practicing and stumbling into things it's true. It is what keeps you going back. Like I remember with our daughter, who's a singer-songwriter, one of her mentors out in Los Angeles said to her, because she kept going, I got to learn piano. I got to learn piano. She knows it, but she's like, most people, they write music on piano. And he's like, you have one of the best instruments on the planet. It's your voice. Why are you not humming melodies? Why do you need to put it on the piano? Why are you working against the thing that actually comes naturally? And I think a lot of us do that to ourselves. We think we need to have our relationships look like everybody else's. You think that the way that you do your work product needs to kind of fall in line, and giving yourself the space to tinker and practice taps into everything that you're trying to teach us. You have another tool, focus beyond failure. Why is failure so essential, Dr. Karp, to unlocking your full potential?
Wow, I've experienced so many setbacks, and, just nothing has ever come easy to me. And I would say, the way I would describe it really is that, let's say and they're talking about my experiences, just all of my experiences in life, really.
Okay, well, give us a big failure.
Okay.
Like you have a big failure.
Oh, I have a lot of big failures. Okay, so for example, I applied to medical school, got rejected from all 3 schools that I applied to. I had so many failures. I was the kid in high school who got up to do a Walkman sing and got booed off the stage, right? I'm that kid.
Wow.
I tried out to be on student council multiple times, and I didn't get on, although I actually did get on in my final year of high school from pattern recognition. I figured some things out. But I almost visualize it's like I'm in a boat. I'm trying to get to the end of the stream, right? And I am bumping into every single rock along the way, every overhanging branch. And as I sort of go, kind of untangling myself, I will look down, I'll look at the rock and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. I'll see a path on the side of the river and I'll say, oh, I wonder where that leads. I'll get out of the boat. I'll start walking down, and then I'll be, wait a moment, I'm supposed to be going down the river. And so I get back in, I bump into like every single rock. I mean, that's sort of like my experience with everything. And so, one of the massive failures that I had is with TEDMed. I was invited, actually, Jay Walker, the CEO of Priceline, was the CEO of TEDMed. And he gave me a call and he said, hey, I would like to invite you to give a talk on your bio-inspiration work, how you turn to nature for inspiration, over to develop medical technologies. I initially said no because I was so frightened. I had not memorized anything since public school, and but then I thought about it and I was like, okay, I will never be asked again to speak on this stage. And I went and I said yes.
And by the way, just for you listening, this is like part of the TED conference franchise. This is like academic superhero. This is the stage where all your peers are staring down at you. This is global. So this isn't like come to the school basement and give a chat.
Yeah.
This is an invitation to stand before everybody in the medical research community globally and just boom, go. And what happened?
So what happened was I practiced like crazy. I rented out the Kresge Auditorium at MIT, which is the biggest auditorium. I presented to 4 people, my family who were there. I presented in front of so many different people. And I knew that talk inside and out. It was like 15 minutes, purely memorized. I had slides, I had animations, I had to get the timing right. I had to make it look like I didn't memorize it, like there was all these sort of stages. And I was ready to go. And I get to TED Med. It was at the Kennedy Center in DC. And I practice my talk and they suggest some changes. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't change it now. It's tomorrow. So I try to figure out how am I going to, because I've memorized it. Then we go on stage beforehand. There's sort of like walkthrough. And they say, by the way, the clicker only goes forward. It doesn't go back. If you go too fast and hit it, you have to yell to the AV person, can you go back? And I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. And they said, sometimes people freeze in the middle of their talk. They said, the two reactions that we've seen is one, they run off the stage. They said, don't run off the stage if that happens. The second reaction we've seen is people will actually start crying. They said, don't do that either.
And the third reaction is when you dump in your drawers and have to throw out your pants. So,
I'm sure that's happened at some point. So, and then they said, just stand there and smile. And so I am like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, I get a pack of Halls in my hand. I'm eating them all right before I go up. I get up on stage. I have it so well memorized that I can think about other things. It's 5 high definition cameras on me being live streamed throughout the world. It's filmed at this Kennedy Center in DC. The president of my institution's in the audience. And I get to the middle of my talk and I think to myself, I missed a line. There was a line that I forgot to say, and my mind couldn't get unhooked from that. And I stopped in the middle of it for 15 seconds. I said nothing. Now, 15 seconds is a very long time to pause on this type of a stage, on any stage.
Put us in that moment.
Yeah.
What was happening for you?
Well, I was so nervous. I, had this like visceral reaction where it was like this negativity came within me. I'm trying to think, okay, I can't run off the stage. I can't start crying. They want me to smile. The swear words are going through my head. I'm holding the clicker, trying to like use it like a lightning rod of energy. And you can see me like going like this with it. Like I'm smiling and I'm like, the only thing I can think of is to turn the slide. And so I hit the clicker to go forward. I turn the slide, a blank slide. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then I'm like, what is that? I go forward again and something magical happens, which is I'm like, wait a moment. I know what I'm supposed to say on this slide. The last slide was a cue. I know what I'm supposed to say there. And I just started up again. And as I'm walking off the stage manager whispers to me, she goes, we can cut that out for the YouTube version. And that was it. And then somebody came to me afterwards and they said, I noticed you paused in the middle of your talk. And I'm like, I think everybody did. And they said, but the fact you were able to recover is really important. And, think about that. And I had actually been shamed earlier in my life when I gave a presentation, just one presentation, I've given so many, that imprinted and created anxiety and fear. And every time I presented after that, and this allowed me to detach from that experience and gain more confidence because I knew that anytime moving forward, if I stopped, that I could find my words again and keep going. And so it's like this tool is focusing beyond failure. It's about finding ways to look at failure completely differently, to see it as opportunities where we can find our greatest insights and opportunities for growth. And to me, one of the key things in all the failures that I've ever encountered that is just huge, it's so big, is what you were saying before. Like we have these expectations. Even the first time we try things, we expect we're going to miraculously succeed in everything we do, right? Like that's our expectation. We go in with that. And what I've realized is that if we reframe failure, like we learn in school, failure is over here, success is over here, avoid failure, maximize success. I see it as a prerequisite to success. I see failure as an opportunity to be creative, as an opportunity to explore other possibilities you didn't think of before. I see failure now as a way to learn. And that's the shift.
It's so easy to get buried alive by your to-do list and to feel like you're just on autopilot and you're barely surviving, that you forget that there is an evolutionary design inside of you that you can tap into.